As you prepare to drift into sleep, let me offer you something more than just rest. Let me offer you reflection. This is not merely a collection of ideas, but a quiet descent into the kind of psychology that speaks to the soul. Inspired by the timeless insights of Carl Jung, Viktor Frankl, and other great thinkers, this space has been created not to fill your mind, but to open it, to invite you into a deeper, more meaningful connection with your own inner life. Carl Jung's psychology teaches us that the human being is not just a mind to be managed or a set of behaviors to be corrected. We are symbols, dreams, instincts, contradictions. We are vast inner landscapes. Jung believed that true healing comes not from avoiding pain or controlling life, but from integrating the parts of ourselves we've pushed away. The shadow, the unconscious, the archetypes, all are vital in the journey toward wholeness. This speech is not about fixing you. It is about remembering that you were never broken. It is about guiding you gently inward to that silent place within where the psyche begins to realign. As you fall asleep, you will hear reflections that bypass the surface and speak directly to the deeper self. The self that dreams, that suffers, that hopes, and that ultimately longs to become whole. Let this not be background noise, but a quiet companion as you surrender to rest. The healing doesn't happen in the noise of effort. It happens in the stillness of truth. At night, when the world withdraws and the noise of the day fades into the shadows, a strange kind of clarity begins to rise from within. In that soft in-between place, between wakefulness and sleep, you are closest to something essential. You may call it the soul, the unconscious, the deeper self. Whatever you name it, it is there, waiting. Not as a distant mystery, but as something that has always been part of you, buried beneath your distractions, your ambitions, and your self-image. We have learned to place too much value on the conscious mind. It is a noble servant, capable of reason and progress, of strategy and precision, but it is not the whole of you. Beneath its surface lies another world, one not bound by logic or confined by time. It is this part of you that dreams, this part that sends images you don't always understand. And yet, when you do glimpse their meaning, it feels like you've remembered something you've always known. The unconscious is not your enemy. It does not seek to confuse or frighten you. It is a wise and ancient part of your being, holding truths that are too great or too subtle for your waking mind to grasp all at once. When you sleep, it opens its gates, and what emerges in those hours is not meaningless. It is meaningful in a language we have forgotten how to speak. Most people do not listen. They treat the night like an escape, a shutting down. They want sleep to be a blankness, but the soul does not go quiet when you turn off the lights. In fact, it begins to speak, and it speaks in the only way it can, through symbols, feelings, patterns, and images. The dreams you experience, even the ones you forget, are not noise, they are mirrors. They show you the parts of yourself you avoid, the longings you suppress, the fears you mask with confidence. They show you what is real beneath what is comfortable. You may notice that when you are quiet, when the day no longer demands your attention, a certain restlessness arises. This is not a problem to be fixed. It is a message. The restlessness is the voice of the self, asking to be heard. It is asking you to stop performing, stop defending, stop escaping, and listen. You are being called back to yourself. You do not need to analyze your dreams like puzzles to be solved. You only need to receive them with honesty and openness. You do not even need to remember every detail. It is enough to acknowledge that a dialogue is taking place within you. A dialogue between the surface of your life and the depth from which your life flows. When you fall asleep with intention, with a willingness to be touched by the mystery, then even your rest becomes sacred. That is why sleep, though it appears passive, can be profoundly transformative, the work of healing, of integration, of becoming whole. It does not only happen in daylight. The night is not the absence of growth. It is the condition for growth to occur on another level. Roots do not stretch in the sun. They reach deeper in the dark. Let the unconscious speak to you. Do not be afraid of what it shows. Darkness is not the absence of light. It is the cradle of light. What you see there is not alien. It is you. You are not only your thoughts and your goals and your roles. You are also your symbols, your instincts, your inner world. And when you begin to welcome this part of yourself, even in sleep, you begin to experience a unity that transcends all inner conflict. There is wisdom that cannot be forced. It comes only when you are still enough, quiet enough, humble enough to receive it. Let tonight be that place of reception. You do not need to control what happens in the silence. You only need to surrender to it. The deeper self will do the rest. And now, as the body prepares to rest and the mind begins to loosen its grip, step back gently. Let the veil lift. Let yourself be carried into the place where the soul remembers who you are. There is a kind of suffering that does not ask to be removed. It asks to be understood. In the quiet hours of the night, when the distractions of the outer world fall away, this kind of suffering often rises to the surface. It doesn't demand your attention with loud cries or dramatic gestures. It appears more subtly, a tightness in the chest, a weight in the belly, a memory that won't let go. And in those moments, something within you begins to stir. A question that has no words, but still aches to be answered. Why? You may have tried to silence this pain, with busyness, with pleasure, with explanations. But none of those truly satisfy the ache, because this kind of pain is not asking to be avoided. It is asking to be given meaning, and that is where real transformation begins. Not by pushing it away, but by turning toward it, slowly, gently, like approaching a wounded child. And in that turning, something extraordinary happens. The pain no longer feels like punishment. It becomes a pathway. It is easy to believe that suffering is a sign of failure or injustice, that it should not be part of life. But the truth is, suffering belongs to the human condition just as much as joy does. To live fully is not to live without pain. It is to be willing to face pain without losing your soul in it, without becoming bitter, without becoming numb. That is the true challenge, and that is what the night, in its silence, invites you to do. Not to fight the suffering, but to listen to it. There is a purpose hidden inside every moment of despair. There is a reason behind every tear that falls quietly in the dark, even if you cannot name it yet, even if it makes no sense to your conscious mind. Somewhere deep within, your being is seeking coherence, not escape. Your spirit longs to find order in the chaos, to make sense of the storms it has endured. This is not delusion. It is the soul's natural desire to turn suffering into significance. If you were to ask yourself what has shaped you the most in life, it would not be the easy days. It would be the moments when everything seemed to fall apart, when the meaning you once held was stripped away. And yet, somehow, in time, something new emerged from that collapse. A deeper truth, a stronger sense of self. An understanding of others that could not have come through comfort. You would not have chosen the suffering, but you would not be who you are without it. So now, as the darkness surrounds you, and your body prepares for rest, do not turn away from the parts of you that still ache. Do not shame them, and do not rush to fix them. Let them be what they are, wounds that are learning how to speak. Ask them what they want to teach you. Let your pain be a teacher tonight, a strange, uninvited guest who carries a gift in its arms, if only you are still enough to receive it. This is not about glorifying pain or romanticizing struggle. It is about recognizing that every human life contains moments that seem to break us open, but only so something new can be born. Without suffering, there would be no humility, no empathy, no real wisdom. There would be no depth to the soul. In this way, pain is not the opposite of growth. It is often the beginning of it. You are not broken because you hurt. You are not weak because you feel lost. These are signs that you are alive and honest with yourself, that you are willing to live with an open heart, even when it bleeds, and that is far braver than pretending everything is fine. Let tonight be a space for this courage, a space to let go of the need to understand everything right now, a space to trust that meaning will come, even if you do not see it yet. Sleep does not require certainty, only surrender, and in that surrender, the soul begins to find its way again. Let your suffering rest beside you tonight, not as an enemy, but as a companion on the journey toward wholeness. There is something curious about fear. It does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It hides in the choices we avoid, in the silence we keep, in the paths we refuse to walk. We tell ourselves it is caution, wisdom, even self-preservation. But beneath those names, something more ancient is moving. It is the fear of transformation. Transformation asks you to let go of who you were. It demands that you step beyond the familiar, even if the familiar is suffering. And so, the parts of life that scare us the most are often the ones charged with the greatest potential to change us. That is why fear, strange as it may seem, is a kind of guide. It points, not away from ourselves, but directly into the places where we have not yet dared to look. If you pay attention, you will notice this pattern in your own life. The moment you move towards something meaningful, something unfamiliar and alive, the fear rises, not because something is wrong, but because something new is being born. You stand on the edge of yourself, and the old identity begins to tremble, not out of malice, but because it knows its time is ending. We often think courage means the absence of fear, but courage is born precisely in the presence of fear. It is the willingness to feel it fully, without allowing it to command our lives. And where does that courage come from? It does not come from the ego. It comes from the deeper self, the one that remembers what you were meant to become before the world told you who you had to be. Within each of us there is a shadow. It is not evil. It is not dangerous in itself. It is simply made of everything we have exiled in order to be accepted. All the feelings we were told were too much. All the truths we were taught to deny. All the parts of our nature that didn't fit into the roles we were given. The shadow holds them all, and the longer we ignore it, the more power it gains. It begins to show up in subtle ways, in resentment, in self-sabotage, in projections onto others. But beneath that behavior lies a truth. The shadow is trying to come home. This is why fear is so often our signal. It arises not just in response to external danger, but when we are standing before something we have disowned. When we approach the door to the unconscious, fear is the first thing we meet. It is the threshold guardian, but beyond it is not chaos. Beyond it is integration. Beyond it is the chance to become whole. You might notice this now as you lie still in the dark. The mind slows, the body releases, and what you've kept buried begins to rise. A memory you avoid, a longing you suppress, a truth about yourself that doesn't fit into your image. These are not disturbances, these are invitations. They are saying, do not run, not tonight, just be still and look. Not to analyze or fix, but to witness, to say to that part of yourself, I see you. I know you're afraid, and I'm not turning away this time. In this act of turning toward what we fear, something remarkable happens. The fear begins to dissolve, not because the danger has vanished, but because we are no longer splitting ourselves in two. The part of you that was cast out is brought into the light. It stops needing to fight you because it is finally being heard. You begin to feel less divided, more real, and in that realness there is peace. Let the fear come. Let it say what it needs to say, but do not confuse its voice with truth. Its volume is not evidence. Its presence does not mean you are in danger. It only means that something important is near, and the deeper self, the part that sees beyond this moment, already knows that what waits on the other side of that fear is something vital, something you have been waiting to reclaim. So tonight, as sleep gathers itself around you, breathe deeply. Welcome the fear not as a threat, but as a threshold. You are not meant to be ruled by it. You are meant to pass through it. There is a kind of recognition that goes beyond the mind, beyond the body, beyond anything the senses alone can offer. You have felt it before, when you looked into someone's eyes and saw something more than a person, more than a name, more than a story. You saw a presence, something that called to you without words, something eternal. That is the moment when love truly begins, not as an emotion, but as an awakening, not as desire, but as truth. Love, in its deepest form, is not about possession or attachment. It is the silent acknowledgement that within the other dwells something sacred, something whole. It is the ability to see without needing to explain. The heart knows before the mind does. You may not understand why you are drawn to someone. You may not be able to justify the connection, but the soul is not concerned with explanations. It recognizes itself, and in that recognition, something ancient stirs. To love is not to agree with someone. It is not to find them perfect. It is to hold space for their humanity without withdrawing your presence. It is to look at their flaws, their confusion, their struggles, and not recoil. Because somewhere within them, beneath the layers they themselves may not even see clearly, is the same essence that lives in you. And when you can love them there, you are no longer loving from the surface. You are loving from the soul. In the quiet of night, when you lie still and all the noise of the world has fallen away, you may find yourself thinking of those who have touched your life, some with joy, some with pain, some with a complexity that defies understanding. And as they appear in your mind, try not to judge them. Try instead to see what lies behind the masks they wore. Were they not also searching for something? Were they not also afraid, also hopeful, also burdened by their own shadows? The ability to see through another's surface is one of the most healing acts we can offer. It is the act of love, not as a feeling that rises and falls with circumstance, but as a decision to behold the deeper reality in someone, even when it is hidden from view, especially when it is hidden. This is the love that transforms. This is the love that endures. You may have known people who saw you this way, perhaps only once, perhaps for only a moment, but you remember it because it felt like being seen for the first time. Like the walls you had built were no longer needed. Like the silence within you was finally heard. And if you have experienced this, even once, then you know how powerful it is. You know that love is not about merging into someone else. It is about calling forth the truth in them and letting that truth breathe. To love in this way is not always easy. It requires the courage to stay open. It requires the maturity to let go of illusions. Sometimes we confuse love with the need to fix or the need to be needed. But true love is not control. It is freedom. It is the willingness to allow the other to be exactly as they are, even as they change, even as they leave, even as they return in new forms. As you prepare for sleep tonight, think gently of those you have loved, not with longing or regret, but with reverence. Honor the role they have played in your journey. Even those who hurt you brought you closer to knowing yourself. Even those who failed to love you were mirrors, showing you where you still needed to heal. And those who loved you well, let their presence be a comfort in the darkness, a reminder that the soul is never truly alone. In the end, love is not a possession you keep. It is a light you carry, and every time you choose to see another through the eyes of the soul, that light grows stronger, not just in you, but in the world. There is a place within you that cannot be touched by the chaos of the world, a still point, deep and unmoved, like the center of a turning wheel. Most people live their lives only on the surface, pulled by obligations, consumed by worries, tossed by every change in their external reality. And yet, within all of us, there exists another space, not a fantasy, not an escape, but a reality more solid than anything outside of you. It is the core of your being, and the further you journey inward, the more you begin to realize this center has been waiting for you all along. You do not have to invent peace. You do not have to earn it. It is already there, beneath the noise, beneath the patterns, beneath the defenses. It has always been there, silent and constant. The problem is not its absence. The problem is our distance from it. We move so quickly, we fill our days with so much, that we forget to return to the place where we truly belong. You've likely had moments, brief perhaps, but unmistakable, where everything suddenly felt right, even if just for a second. Moments when you stopped trying to force meaning and simply felt the presence of it. A sunrise, a quiet breath, the way light fell across the room. These were not random. They were glimpses into the deeper order of life, into the calm that underlies all change. But the mind, so conditioned to protect and prepare, often cannot trust stillness. It wants to fill the silence. It wants to do, to fix, to control. And so we get lost in our thoughts. We identify with every passing feeling, every restless impulse, every fearful prediction. And yet none of those are who we really are. They are weather, but we are not the weather. We are the sky that holds it. To return to your center is not to escape life. It is to see life clearly from a place of wholeness. When you are centered, you still feel emotion, but you are not overwhelmed by it. You still face challenges, but you are not defined by them. You begin to act from clarity, not reaction. And in that space, life begins to feel less like something you have to manage, and more like something you are part of. The unconscious, too, longs for this return. It sends dreams and symbols, not to confuse you, but to guide you back to your essence. It reminds you of what matters, not in the language of logic, but in the language of depth. And when you sleep, it continues its work, reorganizing, revealing, reconnecting. Even in your rest, the journey inward continues. This is why sleep is sacred. Not because it helps you escape the world, but because it opens the gate to the world within. And there, in that quiet space, something begins to align. Not because you force it, but because you allow it. You surrender, and the soul begins to breathe again. Many people spend their lives looking outward for peace. They chase success, love, approval, certainty. And while these things may offer comfort for a time, they cannot fill the space inside that longs to be whole. That space can only be met by you, by your willingness to be with yourself, not just the parts you like, but all of it. The confusion, the questions, the darkness, and still to return again and again to the still point within, trusting that you are not lost. You are simply being led back to where you truly begin. Tonight, as your body softens and your mind drifts, let yourself return. Let the thoughts come and go like waves, but do not follow them. Stay with the center, breathe, rest. You do not need to understand everything. You only need to remember that within you there is a place untouched by fear, untouched by time. A place where peace is not something you find, but something you remember. Let that remembrance carry you gently into sleep. Let it be enough. There is a thread running through your entire life, though it may not always be visible. Sometimes it seems tangled. Sometimes it disappears into moments of confusion, regret, or pain, but it is there. Beneath every choice, every mistake, every detour, there is meaning. Not the kind you can always grasp with your mind, not the kind that shouts its presence, but the quiet kind. The kind that reveals itself slowly, like a photograph developing in the dark. It asks only one thing of you: patience and trust. It is tempting to believe that life must make sense while you are still in the middle of it, that every event should fit neatly into a pattern, every loss should be compensated, every path should lead clearly toward a visible goal. But that is not how depth works. That is not how transformation occurs. Meaning often comes not at the moment something happens, but in the silence that follows. It comes in hindsight, in reflection, in the soft gaze of a soul that has lived enough to see past appearances. Even the things you once wished had never happened to you carry within them something essential, not because they were good, but because they were real, because they broke something open in you that needed to be touched. Often, the greatest turning points in life come disguised as endings, but they are not endings. They are initiations, difficult, yes, even devastating, but they mark the boundary between who you were and who you are becoming. There is a deeper intelligence at work in the unfolding of your life, not an external force dictating your fate, but an internal knowing guiding you toward wholeness. The psyche is not passive. It does not merely absorb experience. It seeks meaning in every experience. That is why people can endure incredible suffering and still come out wiser, more compassionate, more alive, because something within refuses to let pain go to waste. It insists on turning it into something: insight, empathy, clarity, courage. This is the process of individuation, not becoming what others want you to be, but becoming who you already are beneath the layers. And to walk that path requires that you see your life not as a series of disconnected events, but as a journey of revelation. Every relationship, every joy, every betrayal, every silence has contributed to the shaping of your inner world. Even your mistakes have served you, especially your mistakes, because they showed you where you were not yet conscious. They revealed to you the parts of yourself still waiting to be integrated. So when you lie awake at night and wonder why something happened, why someone left, why a dream faded, you are not weak. You are human. And those questions, even when they seem unanswered, are the beginning of wisdom. Life does not always explain itself in words. It explains itself in symbols, in feelings, in the slow unfolding of insight over time. But the meaning is there, waiting to be seen. You may not yet understand why certain things happened the way they did. You may not know what it was all for, but that does not mean it was meaningless. It means you are still in the middle of the story. The seed does not understand the flower it will become. The night does not see the morning it will give rise to, but still the process moves forward. And there is something else, something important. You are not separate from the meaning you seek. You are part of it, the way you respond to life, the way you meet what hurts, the way you offer your truth, the way you love despite the risk. This is what gives your life its shape. Meaning is not something you discover like a buried treasure. It is something you create moment by moment through the choices you make with your heart. So let yourself rest now. You do not need to have it all figured out. You do not need to chase answers into the darkness. What matters is that you stay close to yourself, that you keep listening, keep trusting that what seems broken may yet become beautiful, that what feels lost may be leading you home. Here is an introduction to your speech that naturally sets the tone, references Carl Jung's psychology, and aligns with the reflective, soul-centered journey explored in the key points. Before we begin, I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Just breathe. Let the tension in your body soften. Let your thoughts settle like dust in sunlight. You are not here to learn anything in the usual sense. You are here to remember something your soul already knows. There is a reason Carl Jung's psychology has endured beyond the realm of academic theory. It speaks not only to the intellect, but to the deepest part of us, the part that senses there is more to life than what appears on the surface. Jung did not teach us how to escape our suffering. He taught us how to listen to it. He taught that the soul has its own logic, and that symptoms, shadows, and dreams are not problems to be solved, but messages to be understood. His psychology is not about quick fixes. It is about returning to wholeness. It is about descending into the unconscious, not to get lost, but to retrieve what we have forgotten. That journey is not always comfortable, but it is always meaningful. And it leads us, inevitably, back to ourselves. Tonight, as you listen, you are not just hearing words. You are entering a space where the conscious mind can loosen its grip, where the soul can begin to speak again. Let this be more than a lecture. Let it be a conversation with the deepest part of who you are. Let it be a quiet unfolding of truth, not the truth of the world, but the truth of your being. If this message has touched something deep within you, if it helped you feel seen, understood, or simply more at peace, please consider sharing it with someone else who might need the same. Subscribe to stay connected with more content rooted in depth psychology, meaning, and inner healing. And if this helped you drift into rest, share your thoughts in the comments. We're building a space where the soul feels safe to speak. Let this be more than just a video. Let it be a quiet awakening for many. Thank you.